Hello, everyone, and welcome to Garden Gossip, the home and garden show, with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Garden Gossip Show. Today, we're super excited to welcome Stephanie Rose. I mean, she's got the best name if you're going to go gardening. She's a master gardener. She's an award-winning author of a number of books, her latest being Garden Alchemy, which came out in 2020. And her new book is coming out mid-February. It's called The-Regenerative-Garden. It's hard for me to say that word, Regenerative Garden. 80 practical projects for creating a self-sustaining garden ecosystem. It is a freaking awesome book. Beautiful photos. I mean, you just look at all the plants and the butterflies and you want to get in there and get your hands dirty immediately. Very easy to read and follow through. It's just inspiring, exciting. So go to gardentherapy.ca, her website, which is also chock full of information on gardening and doing it in a sustainable and regenerative way. I'll get that word down. So again, gardentherapy.ca. So welcome, Stephanie. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. We have to practice regenerative.
Something we did a segment on regenerative tourism and travel, which is, they were talking about this. It was about Willamette Valley, Oregon, so not too far from you.
I've been there. I love it.
See, she was like, it's regenerative, and I'm sitting there, we're talking about wine. I'm like, I swear I haven't gotten to the wine yet, but I can't say it. But it's very interesting how this word is out there now, and it's basically going beyond, we all know sustainability, but this is really taking it that extra, more than one step forward and beyond that.
Absolutely. And actually, it's funny because when I first wanted to write this book, I wanted it to be called The Regenerative Garden. I wanted regenerative in the title because that's what the whole concept is about. And they put it through the publisher's board and they talked about it and they said, you know, we're not really sure that people are going to understand what that means. And so we would, like to call it the resilient garden. And I was like, it's not a resilient garden, though. This is not
that's two different things.
It's beyond sustainable. Well, it is a resilient garden, absolutely, meaning that it's a garden that can withstand and bounce back from whatever's thrown at it. But it's more than that. It's more than sustainable. It's more than putting back what we're taking out and creating something that can bounce back. It's about building an ecosystem that thrives on its own without the human input.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because it's also, we've done so many shows, not just on Garden Gossip, but also the Nature Connection show, and a lot also with the National Wildlife Federation, where David Mizujewski would talk about creating these certified wildlife habitats. So you're gardening to attract wildlife and beneficial insects. But it really got me was, he was talking about how we are creating dead zones in our environment just within our own neighborhoods by not planting the right thing. It's like we're having dead zones in the ocean with all the harmful algal blooms. So really taking what we have, even if it's our backyard, we don't have to have a monster garden, right? Like in size to do this. Could be our patios even.
Absolutely. I don't have a monster garden. I live in a small, I live right in the city in Vancouver, BC, Canada, and I'm on an urban lot, and our lots are very small here in the city. I mean, we've got mountains on one side, ocean on the other side. We don't have a lot of room to expand. It's beautiful. Yes, it's absolutely beautiful.
Sounds beautiful.
I mean, not on my house, but I'm talking about the city of Vancouver. We're right on the edge of, of Canada, and like Vancouver is right on the port. So we just don't have room to expand. Our lots are really small. And so in order to create the kind of, big concept gardens that I create, I do it in really small spaces. So everything in the book is meant to teach the concepts of regeneration and give you project ideas that can be scaled from a balcony to an urban sized garden like mine, or a larger homestead landscape, even the suburbs, things like that. Because you're right, these dead zones are, it doesn't give wildlife, it doesn't give all the creatures that we share our space with places where they can stop and get a rest and have some food, maybe have some nectar before they're on their way.
Right.
Even one of the projects that's in the book is a butterfly pathway. So
I
it's about
love that.
creating little
Mm.
spaces where butterflies can stop in their journey, especially on migration journeys. And, we often will find creatures like bees in our garden that are thirsty and tired. So providing them with water and providing them with spaces where they can rest and even sleep for the winter, like bug hotels and things like that. There's
See,
so
it is
many
a
ways.
hotel with a restaurant. That's
The
really what
bug
you're doing.
hotel. I like it.
It's a
It's a
hotel with an
drive-through.
on-site restaurant, a drive-through. I love it, and it's so easy. And I think you're right about the scalability, but also everyone's in different zones. What we're learning traveling the country across America is we've been doing a lot of botanical gardens, rose gardens, and we're seeing that they are starting to add in butterfly wait stations and things like that. So they're kind of going, hey, we're going to do something. Even some of our rest areas on highways are starting to put in pollinator gardens, which I think is
That's
really cool.
awesome.
But when you see those kind of moves happening, that's great. But we're also seeing with climate change that microclimates are actually shifting, and they probably will. The more we, fight off the dead zones, things will shift. So do you feel that with regenerative gardening, that we can help the climate and keep her a little cooler?
Oh, absolutely. So the book is divided into a bunch of 6 different chapters, and they're all concepts that work together. So it's a project book, DIY projects that you can do in your garden, but each chapter builds on this concept a little bit, so you get an idea of the different pieces that build a regenerative garden. And one of them is climate. So it's soil, water, plants, climate, ethics, and community. And community is what we were just talking about when we were talking about our wildlife that comes and visits our garden. But instead of calling that chapter wildlife, I called it community, because it's not just about the creatures that come and visit our garden. It's also about the people who we live with in our communities and sort of building that social structure as well. But when we come to microclimates, absolutely. We all have changing climates, and they're changing day to day. Weather is no longer a great predictor for what a 30-year average is in our area is no longer something that we can count on, because things are so different all the time. And so part of that chapter has the ideas of how to understand your individual climate, and then how to work with it in terms of creating spaces that either harness the energy, so harness the heat from the sun, protect from cold, create windbreaks that help to, a large windbreak, a row of trees or a hedgerow on the outside of a larger property, or even smaller hurdles, which are woven willow basket type structures that you can put in front of individual vegetables. So yes, we have to recognize the changes in our climate, but the more we get to know and observe day to day, we can start to build those systems that work for us rather than depending on a 30-year average.
I really have changed.
Yeah. No, I hope that communities will look at the amount of pavement, and I know we need sidewalks. I understand that, but I also think with careful planning that you can offset the bad part of the heat that rises from sidewalks and the covering of the ground.
I knew it. I knew Nancy.
so true.
Nancy, this is Nancy's pet peeve and rant. Go do it, Nancy. When we lived out in the high desert, tell her. Nancy has a pet peeve.
What? Which
The
one?
mulch,
Lisa?
the gravel. People covering their soil with
yeah,
gravel.
and a lot of gardening books say put down mulch. They say that gravel is a mulch. I'm not in the desert. It gets hot, and you can feel that 10 to 15 degree hike in temperature if you put gravel.
Absolutely. You're so right.
And so to me, it's like, let's go back to a natural mulch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I wrote about both of those things in the book. So it's so great that you're bringing this up, because I mean, I feel like this is a book of answers for some of these questions that people have. I have a list in here of 13 different kinds of mulch that you can use and why you'd use them. And some of them might surprise you, like snow. I remember when I wrote it, the editor came back to me and said, "You wrote snow as a mulch." And I'm like, yes, I did. Because in some cases, leaving snow on your garden beds actually helps to insulate and protect the soil and the plants underneath. And but again, it's about learning about what's best for your environment. You're not going to truck in a bunch of snow and put it in the desert as a mulch.
No,
And
no.
in the desert, you might want rocks that heat up depending on what kind of gardenscape you have. But if you've got plants that need to retain moisture and don't want all that additional heat, then rocks aren't going to be the best option for you. It's going to be something that's more cooling for the soil.
Right.
So I also wrote that in the climate chapter. So all these things are interconnected, which is why you can see on the cover of the book, it's a circle and everything is a different color. Well, each chapter is represented by a different color and we see how they all work together. There's no just one answer. It's about opening your eyes, looking at those things like you did, Nancy, and saying, this is not working.
It doesn't make sense.
Do it differently.
And also because a lot of gardens, especially older gardens, there's a lot of exotics, and they have a whole different requirement scale than native gardening. So, some of the gardening practices that we're used to comes from planting things that don't really survive without extra special care in your garden. So if you stick to native plants, it's a lot easier to garden.
Absolutely. Well, and I've got some stuff in here about like how many native plants should you have, and there's no should. I write the book based on a good, better, best system. So it gives you some ideas of what you can do that will make small changes. The worst thing that we can do is create such lofty goals that people can't do the things that they love, and they can't employ these practices, and then they just sort of back away.
You don't need to tear your garden out either. You don't need to go in and say, that's it. I've got 2 ornamentals, take them all out. You can work it together and just plant the right thing by the right thing, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's so funny that you say that about planting things, because here I am in Vancouver, BC, and you know what a lot of people have planted in their gardens is palm trees. Palm trees.
Really?
Palm trees.
Wow.
Yes. And so they've got Christmas lights around them and they wrap burlap around them and they look terrible in the winter months when they're trying to protect them. But the thing that we've learned about palm trees is that we have a whole beautiful row of them. The reason why people are drawn to them here is we have a beautiful row of them along English Bay, which is right on the ocean, because that microclimate is absolutely perfect for those palm trees to thrive. So they thrive naturally. They get dressed up in Christmas lights during the holidays. And it's just this like really fun thing that we have these palm trees growing naturally in Canada. So people want to put them in their home gardens. They don't quite have the right systems for it. They don't have the right microclimate. And then they have to work really, really hard,
I bet,
for those to survive. And so part of a regenerative garden is something that requires a lot less human input. It's like those palm trees that are at English Bay. We don't have to do anything to maintain those palm trees. So they're in their right place, even if they're not a native plant.
That's interesting. And you also have, and by the way, going back to mulch, I love that you called it living mulch, because that's something, we learned actually to just leave leaves and let everybody grow in there. And we also, when we had the desert garden, we got rid of the gravel and we planted vines, little ground covers. We allowed the wild natural grasses to come back once we amended our soil. Our soil was terrible. It was all chemicalized from when the house was built years ago. Nobody had amended it when we bought the place. So we amended the soil with poop. And
horse
manure.
Manure.
And you talk about that too. So I want to get into that part of it, but we got rid of synthetics and we didn't put any nasty chemicals or whatever, but we also wanted vegetables and fruits. And we said, well, we're going to do what we want to do. And we let cantaloupe grow in among the cactus, among the wildflowers and the native grasses. And it was absolutely some of the best cantaloupe we've ever had. So we grew things the way, you know what I mean? And it was really cool. We had all the birds in the neighborhood came and hung out, had all the hummingbirds. And so you can kind of mix things too. And I think that's what I loved your whole idea of good, better, best, because it should be fun and creative. And we should learn to work with Mother Nature and coexist, and experimenting and having a guide like your book really helps. I think kids would dig that. to go out and not, this is just don't move the vegetables into the, that's not fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
I
thing.
wanna
Think of
mix.
all the food, fresh food and vegetables that we wouldn't be able to grow and herbs. I get, wonderful herbs in my garden because I've got a lot of herbscaping, and it's just, like we wouldn't get those same sorts of medicines. We wouldn't get those same sorts of nutritional plants. We wouldn't get those same sorts of, just delicious things that are fun, like the most delicious cantaloupe, if we stick to mostly native plants. So it's, again, it's like doing the best that you can and providing those natives so that we're providing food and medicine to our wildlife that needs those plants, but also finding other things that grow really well for us in our microclimate that don't need a lot of input and can naturalize and provide us with the, joy and nourishment that we need.
That's the other thing you talk about is intensive planting. So I was like, okay, she's going in. What's going on? She's getting her tractor.
Yeah. No, like, I mean, again, I'm in an urban space. So it's the concept of intensive planting is to, it's partially what you were saying about the living mulch. It's about interplanting plants between plants. It's creating a polyculture. So we don't have just, a row of all one kind of plant that's producing something, but instead we've got, 15 different kinds of strawberries that are dotted throughout the garden, so that we're, instead of, creating one big space that we cover with nets and we try to, fight for the strawberries with the birds, we can walk through the garden and pick a strawberry here or there, and then some creature can go and eat the strawberries themselves. And they're beautiful. They protect the soil. They have nice shallow roots that, that feed on that topsoil of nutrition and keep the moisture in. There's, so many benefits to just finding the ways of planting things in between, planting different varieties, finding the things that thrive.
It's neat. We were just at we did a pet sit, and everyone, this is what we do as we travel, as in East Tennessee. And it's a beautiful, it just normal suburbia until you get into the backyard, and they got chickens. And they've got an over 100-year-old apple tree, like these old, and they were falling, these antique apples and berries and just beautiful trees. And then in the center, she just did this giant garden, but it's not that giant because, like you're saying, it's normal lots. And she grew flowers like sunflowers in amongst with the tomatoes, and it was just this beautiful thing. And the birds came in, but here's her vegetable area, but they went in for the sunflowers instead of eating all, she had this balance of everyone's going to eat. And then you were talking about community. So that's community. You can give extra produce to your neighbors, your human neighbors.
Yes. Absolutely. And some of the projects in the community chapter are about, they really bloomed in this period where we've had to stop thinking so globally and start thinking more locally as we are, working from home, staying at home a little bit more. It's amazing that you're doing so much traveling. A lot of us have been home for a couple of years now. And in our communities, I noticed my community in particular has just opened their doors to community sharing. There's lots of online groups, things like Facebook sharing groups and Buy Nothing groups that exist, but it's these seeds, that little libraries, like little free libraries, urban farm stands, things like that are popping up. So if you've got a lot of extra produce, you could set up a little, or vegetables and fruits that you've grown in your garden, you can set up a little urban farm stand and bag some things, put it out front, and let people just either take what they need. They could donate to charity. They could pay you for it, and you could use it to continue to build your seed supplies and do your passions of being a backyard gardener.
See, that's cool.
Yeah, there's room for urban flowers. People who just love to grow flowers start urban flower stands. So another urban gardener friend of mine, again, lives in the city on a small lot, and she has a little flower CSA, and she has a flower stand right beside her little free library. And so we featured that in the book on how to build it. That's and awesome. The structure of how to, become sort of this like mini flower farmer or larger scale flower farmer where you're sharing out in the community beautiful flowers that brighten people's day. Her donations go to charity, but she gets the joy of growing the flowers, and all of the wildlife gets the joy of being able to feed and nest in her beautiful garden.
Nice.
We
I like that.
did a farm sit, and we're going back. We're going to play 2 months of farming again, which was awesome. Because I
It was
think
so
what you're
much fun.
doing, like you're saying, scaling, I think this is something where we're going to change what's happening to our topsoil across. I mean,
Yes.
that's huge with all the monoculture, monocropping, culture things happening. But we did this mini farm, and it's a hobby farm, and they had turkeys, they have guinea fowl and chickens and all of that. But she had put in 2 large vegetable gardens. Every morning I would go in and harvest, and I'd play with spiders. She'd get photos like, here's your spider of the day, here's the orb weaver. And then we what was it? What are those things? Cicadas. And then I found, all these cool new bugs and things. We saw hawks, and this was hands in,
awesome.
off you go. And we were doing okra and peppers and all kinds of cucumbers and zucchinis, and to all kinds of tomatoes and heirlooms. And I was learning things that I did not know, that this has to be this way and how you had to handle them. So who got refrigerated, who didn't, who needed to be air dried. It was like this whole learning about the color changes of the peppers, and then twice a week take them to the food bank, which they actually helped set up. And the one day I went, I ended up in line with all the people by accident getting the food. And you wouldn't believe, the need for people, and of all walks of life, because of, especially during the pandemic and job loss, how many people were there. And they were getting fresh eggs. They were getting it used to be a food bank was, here's your can of stuff that isn't good for you. And now they're actually getting food that has minerals and vitamins and sustenance, and that's helping kids.
And it's fresh.
It was one of the best experiences we've had because of that.
Absolutely. And, it's nice that you're able to get into line and experience that, because one of the things about promoting this level of community is that we want to take care of everybody. And it's definitely about, looking to those that have socioeconomic factors or different opportunities or job loss or whatever that's caused them to, have a need for something like a food bank. We all have a need for community sharing that we've kind of moved away from. And so even if you have a vegetable garden full of food, when somebody drops off something that they've grown to your home, or offers something, or you're able to offer something, that feeling of giving and receiving is something that we've really gone away from in our communities, and we need to get back to, so that we're growing, we're not just improving our topsoil, we're not just improving our plants and our homes for our pollinators, but we're improving the homes for ourselves, creating that
kids.
Kindness. Yes, showing children how to share within a community. Yes,
maybe they'll grow things later and actually now eat their vegetables, right, Nancy? Nancy will eat your broccoli.
What?
Won't eat.
What?
But it was. I think that's cool. But that is regenerative. I said it.
Yes, you said it. You said it great.
Did.
I have so many books. I have so many books with these crazy names. So my previous book was Garden Alchemy.
I love that. That's a good
people
word.
struggled with Garden Alchemy a little bit. I think one right before that was Home Apothecary. So,
Okay, now that.
Well, no, but this is what I love about you're doing. You're making beauty products, herbal products, soaps. You're teaching people. If everyone, you go on our website, there's all kinds of things to get involved with right away. But you're showing what we can do from gardening and growing and herbs. I did research, I'd say about 10, 15 years ago. I got really stuck in, because a friend was going to do a project on growing herbs, because she was all into it. And unfortunately she had death in her family and all. And I'm like, you need to go and do this. This will really work. And I got so involved in herbs and plants, medicinal flowers that are almost gone off of our planet. We need, there's rare ones that used to not be rare, like certain, and depending on what area you're in, that need to be cultivated, and you could make a profit doing it. I was telling her, I was like, look, if you grow this and this grows really well here, you could actually sell this. And she's like, oh, I got all into it because we actually do have a need of bringing some of these herbs back. I think we've kind of like it difference between an heirloom and, you know, our antique fruits and vegetables. I think, isn't that the same thing with our herbs and those kind of things?
Well, heirloom is something that's been passed on from generation to generation.
Mhm.
But yes, we have many, many heirlooms that have gone extinct because we're not saving them. And so we need to find those ways to, you know, keep those, you know, those heirlooms, keep those antique, keep those historic
Mhm.
plants, those medicines, keep them growing. And yeah, not let them fall by the wayside. So seed saving, yeah, that's another way of doing it, is, you know, finding those plants that are meaningful to you, planting them, saving the seeds, sharing those seeds and sharing the information on how to grow them in your neighborhoods through something like a seed sharing library. So that's, again,
Mhm.
another community thing that you can pop up and put seeds in, along with some information on how to grow, so that maybe somebody who's never grown those before could start planting them in their garden and find that same passion.
See, I'm thinking everyone for holidays and birthday gifts, start give the book, The Regenerative Garden. I was
Yes,
like,
Yes,
that's a good
I've
please.
got this
idea.
going now. Okay, I want to ask, can you tell us your story of how you got into gardening? Was this something when you were a child that you always did? How did
Yes.
you get into it? Because I was going to introduce you as the Martha Stewart of gardening. Uh-oh, she's going to come after me now. Her
Yeah.
and
Uh-oh.
Snoop Dogg are going to get me. All right.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wasn't a gardener when I was growing up. I lived in the city, gardening, you know, my parents both worked for corporate jobs. I didn't really have that access to gardening. I then did myself. I went and I worked in a corporate job and sort of went to business school and did that same sort of thing. It never quite felt like something that worked for me, that 9 to 5 in an office thing. I kind of struggled and knew that I was drawn to nature. But then one day in 2006, I got sick. Immediately overnight, I was disabled and I wasn't able to get out of bed for almost 2 years. And
Wow.
I turned to gardening as the thing that I used to rehabilitate my body and my mind. I say that gardening saved my life because it did.
Mhm.
And this evolution has happened over many, many years. I started with my body was, after 2 years of being bed, I was really weak. And, you know, my mind was also quite weak from all that. And
Right.
gardening strengthens us in our body. It gets us outside, you know, sort of feeling the soil and breathing the fresh air and feeling the
Mhm.
sunshine. But also it's so scientific and there's so much to learn. So I got every book from the library, sat in bed and read them, and then went outside and started with just 5 minutes a week because that's all my body could handle. And I
Wow.
moved up to 5 minutes a day, and I just kept testing things. I got books on growing perennials and trees and shrubs and herbs and vegetable plants. And I started a charity garden in my front garden. I joined the Vancouver Master Gardeners group and did that training. And that was like 12 or 13 years ago now that I've been a master gardener, and I work with children in children's gardens.
Cool.
It was learning how to grow
Mhm.
everything through experimentation. And that's
Oh,
when I
wow.
found herbalism and permaculture. I found the healing power of plants, not just through growing them and eating healthy foods, but also what we put on our skin, the
Mhm.
soaps that we use, the herbs that we can add to our, you know, our daily lives beyond just eating them in our foods is really healthy. When I realized all the stuff that we were putting on our skin that could be, you know, very hard for some of us to process through our organs, then
Mhm.
using natural ingredients was something that I found really healing and helpful for me, and totally improved my skin, my hair, like how I felt in my body. So I started writing about that as well, and sort of became a organic skincare formulator. Then I found permaculture. And so through all of this, I was kind of questioning the way that we gardened. We look at gardening as it's a lot of effort. We build a raised bed, we plant in a row of annual plants that we then harvest and eat, and then we rebuild the soil and we plant in those plants again in a subsequent year. It just didn't seem to make sense. It was so laborious. people were always complaining about, I'd love to garden, but I don't have the time. I would love to garden, but I don't have the energy. I would love to garden, but I don't have the funds. And I went, like for me, I had to make gardening accessible because I was disabled. And so I found that a garden that regenerates itself was through building the soil, choosing the right plants, harvesting and catching rainwater, and allowing like drought tolerant plants, and creating a watering system so that I'm not out there every day, twice a day, watering everything, interplanting things so that the weeds are not taking over, accepting that weeds are wild plants, often medicinal, some like often edible, that offer us soil fixing capabilities, that rebuild our nitrogen, that bring in pollinators and insects. And so it was all those concepts that went, I can't do this level of work in my level of disability, but I want to have a big, lush and beautiful garden for the earth and for my own healing. And so now I do, and people can't believe that I never work on it. I mean, I build these projects, I do the planning, I do the thinking, and then I go and I enjoy it. I go and I pick things, I harvest,
Awesome.
I sit with the garden. When you were saying that the birds came in and they ate the sunflowers, those birds are also eating the aphids off their plants. So
exactly.
there, I remember sitting there and planting, had all this lettuce, and the lettuce had all these aphids on it. And somebody was, kind of freaking out about it and saying, we got to get rid of all these aphids. We can't eat the lettuce. And I said, just give it a minute. Like, just let's see what happens. Right. And I remember one day I was working in my studio and I heard chirp, 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 chirp. So I went outside and I took a look, and there were these birds all over the lettuce, just feasting. You could just see them. They're like, I couldn't eat another one. It's so stuffed. They were chirping so happily. And I went out and I looked at my lettuce, and it was just squeaky clean, not an aphid to be seen. And so I didn't have to do any work. I got, a beautiful food source, and I got really happy birds that knew and told the rest of them that they could come back and eat aphids in my garden anytime, because I was, had a nice organic garden for them to feast on.
That's what happened with us.
Nice.
We got aphids, and all the little goldfinches came.
The goldfinches came,
and we love
they're
them.
beautiful.
Oh, they have a beautiful song too, don't they?
I love them so much.
So yeah, that's the thing. We had like a full ecosystem going, and all these plants, native plants amongst it was just, once it was like the native plants heard, we can go over there now. It's safe now. They clean their soil. And I think that's something that people get scared of, is, soil, that means science. So they'll go by, amend, or all this stuff, those big names that we know is really not good for the soil. And, some things are, naturally stuff, and then it's like, we're buying chemicals to do this. And then you're wondering why there's so many dogs with allergies right now. That's one thing we see across the country, is animals with allergies from going out in lawns, going out in the garden. And when did you see dogs have scratchy allergies all the time?
No.
Is it the same time maybe all of us humans are starting to get scratchy allergies from what's going on in what chemicals we're putting out? And we see it. One dog, we were walking a dog with a lady, and she was talking about how, and it was in Tampa, I think. The city had gone in and done something to the water, and the dog went splashing in. Both dogs got seizures and almost died over what was going on with the chemicals. And so this is why I think it's so important. But we've got families more at home together now. You've got to make it healthy, not just, if it's not just about, I grow a carrot and that's healthier than what we get from the store that's been trucked in from, 2,000 miles or beyond. It's about how we are taking care of those lawns. People are giving their dogs, actual human allergy pills. It's insane.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be like that. It seems really weird with what's going on. And I know it's all chemical. I know it is.
Well, it has to be. And, I'm glad to see people, it seems to me that they're not so focused on one must have a big lawn. Now,
that's changing.
I see that changing up. And especially where if you have kids and you want them to have a place to play, a lawn makes sense. It really does
You
to
can
a
do a small
point.
one.
But they used to be when you drove up and down streets, everybody's houses almost looked the same and they all had a lawn.
Yeah.
And and it's nice to come across gardens rather than lawns. Everything has its place, but I think when you have a neighborhood, it's lawn after lawn after lawn after lawn, you're calling the pest. Like in Yuma,
Arizona.
they did this. They had peanut plants, farms of peanut plants. They can't plant them now because they planted so many that the whitefly came in and they couldn't get rid of the whitefly.
And their
because-
lettuce crop was bigger, so they didn't want to get rid of their
Right.
big lettuce
Yeah,
production.
so they really caused a migration of whitefly into that community that took years to get rid of. And so they don't plant peanuts anymore. If they had interspersed the peanut plants, I know you can't harvest that way, if you're trying to really I'm talking not about a person's garden, I'm talking about a farm, basically.
Yeah.
Uh, it does change things and it does cause problems if
Oh,
you don't
absolutely.
intersperse.
And the thing is that there's part of why I wrote this book was so that it could sort of open up perspectives that it's not saying no to lawns. I've
No.
got a recipe in here for a wildflower lawn. So lawns that include small, low growing plants. My lawn, I like having a little patch of lawn in my backyard. It's for my dog and my
Sure.
children to play, and we enjoy having that little space. But I've mostly replaced it with clover because here clover is such a beautiful plant. It stays green most of the year. It fixes nitrogen. It has deeper roots, not as shallow as turf grass. And it's very treadable. It's very forgiving. They're selling now micro clovers as really, really expensive seed mix, like insanely expensive, that
Wow.
nobody could even afford it. But wild clover is wonderfully free and just will come in and plant itself in your lawn and help to keep it green and beautiful all year round. I mean,
With
even
flowers.
understanding,
With flowers. That's beautiful
yeah,
flowers.
with flowers,
Mhm.
and understanding that our lawns don't, that we have to see them a little bit differently. All that supplemental water that people put in the summer to keep them green is actually harming those individual plants because those plants need to go brown in order to protect themselves. They're sending all their energy into the roots, going brown so that they're protecting themselves so that they can thrive again when it's not so hot, when they're not under so much heat stress. So again, just looking at the plants and asking them, what is it that you need? And are you in the right spot? And am I working with you in the way that I can in order to not cause me stress and not cause you stress so that, we can live together like, grass grows in meadows and grass grows in forests and grass grows in all sorts of places naturally.
Even in the desert. Yeah,
So-
even in the desert.
Yeah,
So
so
it does.
how do we include that perspective rather than it trying to look like a golf course? How do we look at how can we find that natural way of giving us the thing that we want if it's a lawn?
It's
But I
fun.
agree, like it brings in all these pests if we're just growing one thing and we're forcing it. Frankly, we're exhausting ourselves. We're making it too much of a chore, and gardening should be joyful and
Fun.
easy.
Should be fun.
It should be
It
fun.
is fun.
And I love this because it's people can get going with everything and not, I think that we spend so much, and you don't have to spend so much to put a garden.
Not really.
No.
It
Not
really,
really.
it's about how you do it and what you choose. And it's fun. And it's fun for kids to get out there and
It's so
start
good
to
for them.
watch
It's so
a
healthy.
cocoon turn into a flower, a butterfly, all of that, those stages of nature. Even the snakes are cool.
Oh, the snakes are great. They're
Very good.
wonderful. They're wonderful creatures to have in our gardens.
Yeah.
I know, people are so afraid. I get because there's poisonous ones, but if you give them space,
Well, since you are on Garden Gossip Show, we want some gossip. So
Okay.
if you were going to be a garden sitter or a house sitter with a garden, obviously, anywhere in the world, like it could be a mansion, it could be a famous castle, it could be someone's house, it could be, if you could go anywhere for a weekend, just so you could have that experience of that garden and the house, where would it be, or whose would it be?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is Sage Mountain Farm, which was the sanctuary that was created by Rosemary Gladstar, who's an American herbalist. I'm sure you know.
She's in the forward of your book. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I've always wanted to go to Sage Mountain and just see the integration of medicinal plants and wildlife and preservation. I think that would be an amazing place to visit.
Nice.
Awesome. She did a wonderful forward too. She's like, this is the one gardening book that you need. That's it. Just get it.
Yeah. I had a lot of tears came out over that one, because when, somebody who you've read all of their books and is one of your heroes and influences, is able to read your writing and stand behind it. There's nothing you can, that's the gossip. It's that, whew, that's a feeling.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Now, do you have a Facebook group or anything like that where people can connect, and do you do that kind of thing? I know you do classes, right? And speaking engagements.
Yeah. I have a great newsletter list. I send out an email every week, and the emails have a ton of ideas, usually lots of updates. I give a little bit of personal information on what's going on in my life or what's going on in the world. So you can sign up on that on gardentherapy.ca on the subscribe page. So it's /subscribe. And it's gardentherapy.ca. So not
You're
.com.
Canadian.
I'm
That's
Canadian.
It.
Yes.
She's Canadian. She's a British Columbian.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. So .ca. So gardentherapy.ca. It's a great name for that too. I love that. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been fun sharing some gossip with you.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure to meet you both. It's so fun to be on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Again, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. We air daily except for major holidays, but sometimes we go, let's have a party. So keep up with our shows there. Thanks so much.